Sex.
Male.
Family.
Child.
Divorce.
No.
Professor Freud. Dr. Jung.
I've simply opened a door. It's for the young men like yourself to walk through.
How is your little Russian patient?
There was the most dramatic improvement.
Is she a virgin?
Oh, certainly.
If you ever want to take the initiative, I live in that building there.
Sometimes you have to do something unforgivable just to be able to go on living.
The movie starts, and we see some people forcefully taking a girl named Sabina somewhere. After a while, we come to know that they are taking her to the hospital at the behest of Sabina's mother. Actually, Sabina has a disease called hysteria, and whoever has this disease, laughing and crying together, which looks quite strange to see. After a while, Dr. Carl comes to Sabina's room to treat her. He tells Sabina that I will not use any injection or medicine on you, but we will talk about your past for 1 or 2 hours of the day so that you can find out what is bothering you. Now Carl starts treating Sabina, during which he sits behind Sabina and starts asking her questions so that Sabina would answer after seeing them. If there is no time district, then further from the words of both of them come to know that Sabina's father is responsible for this condition of her father, who used to harass her and her siblings since childhood. We then see Carl at his house with Emma, who was his wife, and she was currently pregnant. Emma is the daughter of a very rich businessman, due to which she is very rich. Later, Carl also tells Emma about Sabina's case. After a few days, when Carl is checking Emma's condition, Carl learns one more thing: if Sabina's disease is removed, then she is a very brilliant girl. That's why Carl thinks that if he can cure Sabina, then Sabina might one day become a very good physician. After this, Carl once again asks Sabina to tell about his past, and asks, when did your father hit you for the first time? To this, Sabina says that when she was 4 years old, the plate was broken by accidentally falling down at her hands. Then her father took her to a small room and hit Sabina behind. Now all these things were causing pain to Sabina, but at the same time, she was enjoying it, although it was a bad thing. But Sabina started liking their dads hitting him behind. After which, whenever her dad used to ask her to go to the small room, then Sabina silently obeyed him because she also started liking it. After listening to this whole story, Carl understands that due to this incident, Sabina has become a victim of hysteria disease. Now the story goes on like this for 2 years, but we see that Carl has come to Emma's house to meet Dr. Freud. When Carl was talking with Dr. Freud, that's when we came to know that Sabina's condition had improved a lot in the last 2 years. She is also studying psychoanalysis in medical school with Carl's recommendation. Carl believes that Sabina can become a very good psychoanalysis doctor. Further, we also learned that Dr. Freud invented the method by which Dr. Carl treated Sabina. But many years ago, when Dr. Freud told everyone about his method, then the world did not accept his method and everyone made fun of him. However, the rest of the doctors believed that Freud's methods were very dangerous, which could also kill the patient. The time shown in this movie, at that time, the treatment of hysteria disease was done with shock treatment. But for the first time, Carl adopted the method of Dr. Freud, and he also cured Sabina in his way. When Carl tells Freud about this, Freud is very impressed. During the conversation about the book, Carl learned that Dr. Freud was a man who did not like to be looked down upon by others. In return, he always tries to make the person in front consider his thoughts and believe his words. Next, Carl goes to meet Sabina and tells Sabina that he has spoken to Dr. Freud about her today and has told him that she could be a very good psychoanalyst. Sabina is overjoyed to know this because she too had to study psychoanalysis. A few days pass by doing this. One day Dr. Freud sends a man named Otto to Carl for treatment. Actually, Otto is also a doctor of psychoanalysis, but for some reason he had become addicted to girls, and his father talked to Dr. Freud to get rid of this thing. After this, Dr. Freud sent him to Carl, because Carl had recently cured Sabina through his method. Further, during a conversation with Otto, Carl learns that Otto is having an affair with several of his patients. In fact, he believes that by doing this he was not only doing the patient well, but he was also giving them the courage to move forward in their life. After this, when Carl meets Sabina the next day, Sabina tells her about their thoughts. This is where she kisses Carl. However, Carl also liked Sabina for a long time, so he doesn't say anything to Sabina, but when Otto comes to know about this, he says that you have to give freedom to Sabina, and to do that you have to have a relationship with her. Hearing this from Otto, Carl understood to a great extent what he had to do next. But Carl was getting upset thinking that Otto had come here to get his treatment. But he advised him. After that one day Otto somehow escaped from the hospital, and before escaping he made a gift to Carl. The letter was left. It was written in it that he is running away from here being fed up with his father. So it is not his fault in this. Also in this letter, he suggests Carl to get into a relationship with Sabina. Then after reading this, Carl can't stop himself, but goes straight to Sabina's house, where he also makes a relationship with Sabina for the first time, and from here the affair of both of them starts. After that, this cycle continues for many days. Meanwhile, Sabina tells Carl to beat him on the back several times, just like his father used to beat him in childhood, so that we understand that Sabina still hasn't completely forgotten that thing. While doing all this, Carl also used to meet Dr. Freud and tell him all about Sabina's report, but till now he had not told Dr. Freud about his and Sabina's relationship. Another thing turns out, Carl hasn't always wanted to do psychoanalysis. He actually had to study paranormal activities, but Dr. Freud refused him. But due to this, the distance between the two started increasing. A few days later, Dr. Freud comes to visit Carl. He asks Carl about the rumors spreading in the city that someone girl is sending the latest that Carl is having an affair with another girl. Now, hearing this, Carl refuses and says that he is not having an affair with anyone and it is all just rumors. Now, after hearing this, Carl gets scared that if anyone really comes to know about his and Sabina's relationship, then his relationship will get spoiled. Therefore, after meeting Sabina, he breaks up with her. Sabina is shocked by the breakup, and she starts behaving like a before again. But when Carl comes home, he learns that Emma too. She learns about the rumors going on in the city, due to which Emma thinks that Carl is having an affair. So the conversation between them for a few days. The next day Sabina comes directly to Carl's office, and from both of them it is revealed that Sabina's mother also came to know about the rumors. So, she asked Carl about it. That's why Carl denied that Sabina was no longer his patient and hadn't met him for a long time. Sabina feels very bad to hear this because on one hand, she is lying to Sabina and Carl, and on top of it, so she leaves from there. Now Sabina needed someone's guidance to complete her psychoanalysis studies. That's why she writes a letter to Dr. Freud and requests him for help. In that letter in the companion, she also writes about the relationship between herself and Carl. Then when Dr. Freud comes to know about this, he immediately writes a letter to Carl asking him if he was having an affair with Sabina. But Carl replies, saying in the letter that Sabina was just his patient and nothing ever happened between them. Now after reading this letter, the doctor believes in Carl. That's why he wrote a letter to Sabina. Tell me that you lied to me about your relationship with Carl, so I will not help you in any way. After reading this letter from Dr. Freud, Sabina feels very bad and starts crying. And then she comes straight to Carl, who was leaving the city and going to live in another place with his wife. Here Sabina asks Carl to tell the truth to Dr. Freud whatever happened between them, because if Carl doesn't tell the truth to Dr. Freud, then he will not help him, which may end Sabina's career too. Now on Sabina's insistence, Carl agrees to tell the truth to Dr. Freud and writes a letter to Dr. Freud, telling him that Sabina did not lie to him, and that they were in a relationship. When Dr. Freud reads that letter, he then apologizes to Sabina and takes her over to him. After this, a few months pass and Carl goes to America for a meeting with Dr. Freud. During the meeting, Carl, instead of supporting Dr. Freud, puts up a lot of points against him, due to which we can clearly understand that a lot of distance has come between them. After which, when they come home, both of them say goodbye to each other by writing a letter for the last time, so that we can understand. Are they not working together? Now a few years pass by doing this, but one day Sabina comes to Carl's house, and while talking to Emma there she learns that Sabina married a Russian, and she is also currently pregnant. Here Emma tells Sabina that since Carl stopped writing letters to Dr. Freud, he went into depression. So Emma asks Sabina to talk to Carl once. Later, while Sabina is talking to Carl, she tells Carl that she is pregnant and she has a child in her stomach. Carl likes to hear this, and he says, "I love you" to Sabina. Sabina left, and she was crying a lot. That is the end of the movie. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.